Welcome once again to the Power Pit. I am excited for today's guest because we're going to pull Andrew out from behind the cameras, and he's going to talk to us today about some of his goals and even some of his struggles that he's had over his fitness journey. And I'm excited about this because Andrew is a client. He's coming on board, and our goal here is to document this journey as we work together to really get to the root of things and really help him to ultimately reach his goals. So, Andrew, thanks, man, for being on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's really easy to get motivated when you're behind the cameras and there's all these motivational and inspiring people coming on talking about their journeys, their struggles, and it's like, I bet maybe my story would be something that's worth chatting about. So happy to be here and excited to kind of be on this year plus whatever, we'll say a year journey.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Obviously we've had conversations before. We're going to go through some of that again here. So the viewers can get caught up. And one of the reasons we wanted to do this is because, during our conversations, a lot of the things that you said were things that I've said in the past or felt in the past, and vice versa. And, it was one where I think this journey and this story really resonates with people out there. And the fact that it's January right now, we've got a lot of people starting and making some moves. It was like, you know what? This totally coincides with what we want to do. And our ultimate goal with this is to just kind of empower people, and hopefully, one, they can get inspired by this journey, but not only that they can also find some things to pull in and take away from this that maybe helps them on their own personal journey.
That's exactly it. That would be my hope. Is just I'm a big guy. You can see me, and if I can start, then you can probably start too. That's the first thing. I think I guess just kind of like going right into my past with my fitness and my whole fitness journey. This has been a struggle for me. Like my weight, my fitness level has been a struggle for me since high school, I would say, primarily.
Yeah.
I was probably in my best shape in high school, ironically, but I felt probably my lowest, as most people do in high school. Played some football, nothing crazy, but I had some injuries, and that led to a lot of a period of being quite sedentary after playing football, messing up my ankles and my knee, and then into university, and that led to, the partying and whatever, kind of gaining more weight.
Yeah, that partying.
Exactly. That's a common theme. And then I think where things are different now, and with this time starting and getting more intentional, I guess, about the weight loss, is in the past I'd had a very much like an all or nothing. You've talked about it on previous episodes where it's like trying to dive in head first. I'm going to go from not exercising at all to I'm going to do 2 a day every day, and I'm going to restrict my calories. I'm only going to eat chicken and rice and broccoli. And as you know, as a professional in fitness, like that's not sustainable. It's not a sustainable approach. So that had been my approach to fitness and weight loss for, I don't know, like all through my 20s, was like just beating my head against a wall, trying to keep doing these like different fad diets or like all or nothing approach. And then I actually was, I think it was probably about 3 or 4 years ago, I actually was put in touch with a mindset coach, and totally changed the way I started to approach this journey. And I guess, like, for context, probably 3 years since I worked with that person. In that 3 years, I've been able to lose probably about 45 pounds and more importantly though, I've been within like 5 or so pounds, have kept that off.
Yep.
And the biggest shift was with that all or nothing thinking and approaching things rather from I'm going to do this for the short term to get the result I want to get. As long as I can white knuckle it, I'm going to do this crazy whatever approach. Yep. And shifting more to a mindset of like, how do I move towards better? It's like, okay, maybe you're eating fast food and you're on the road and that's the option. So rather than just indulging in that, I'm going to have a burger and a diet soda rather than the fries or whatever. It's like Is it better to not eat the fast food? Of course. But what can I do in every decision I make to move in the right direction?
Just to take those steps.
Take those steps, and then ultimately it's like every step motivates you more to get more intentional. And that's where we are today is, okay, I've been taking these quote unquote baby steps for the last 6 months, a year, really intentionally. Now with the new year and us, really getting to know each other and meeting through our networking group, I'm wanting to take that next bigger step into getting even more intentional and setting some more goals and holding myself more accountable, which is part of why I wanted to kind of get on camera and document this, is just holding, like, if I know I'm going to be doing an update in a month, I want to have a good update. So that's the other part of it as well.
Absolutely. It really builds in that accountability. But I think it's really important with what you said there is I like those baby steps. But not only that, I think sometimes people forget. They look at their past and they're like, I've tried and I've tried and I've tried and I've never succeeded. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's true. But on the flip side is, you talked about working with a mentality coach, changing that shift in mentality and being like, okay, but each time you tried, did you learn something new? And did you continue implementing it? Because again, that all or nothing is like, oh, I tried it this many times, I never got there. But it's like, well, yeah, but did you get a little better and then a little better and then maybe lose about weight loss and lose a little bit more and then lose a little bit? And like, were you able to just better yourself, even if it was slightly, from those past experiences? Because I've worked with people who have worked with multiple trainers and different things. And a lot of times they're like, oh, they throw the baby out with the bathwater. And they're like, oh, this trainer didn't get me there. Which I don't necessarily have that mentality. I don't judge other trainers like that, because it's one where it's like, you're on your journey and the trainer is just a mentor along the way. And sometimes it's just the mentor you needed at that time. Like you talked about, totally, and I know with your history with kind of the boxing and even though that might have developed some all or nothing mentality thinking, on the flip side, it still pushed you. It still put some grit in. It still got you started with a few things.
It was exactly what I needed at the time too. Because I was in that period of really focusing on my boxing, like right after my dad passed quite suddenly before my 21st birthday. And that was, a period where I was still kind of healing from that loss. I wasn't back into the full swing of working yet. I had the time, and I was also coming out of like just depression, grief, whatever. And I realized I could spend all this time in my depression, not wanting to get out of bed, not wanting to whatever, or I could put all that focus into something positive. And it was exactly that all or nothing, that like white knuckle, nose to the grindstone. I think probably for a solid 2.5, 3 months, I ate the exact same things every single day. I can tell you what it is. I had, I called it gray paste in the morning, literally like just water, oats, protein powder. That was breakfast. Lunch was 4 ounces of chicken breast.
I think that's actually how they punish people in Survivor.
I think so too.
Big Brother is what it is.
Oh man. But yeah, it was that, like 4 ounces of chicken breast with like whatever Ezekiel bread and mustard, and then a cup of rice, 4 ounces of steak, and 2 cups of vegetables. And that was like every day for 3 months. I saw a ton of results. Obviously, if you're going to the gym, I was going to the gym 4 times a week for personal training. I was also doing 2 boxing classes a week. And then every day I was doing an hour on the cross trainer. Yeah. So of course I'm going to see results when I'm eating probably a half or a third of what my calories were before. And then my activities also going from nothing to, more than more than a lot of athletes maybe even do. But it also wasn't sustainable because I wasn't working really at the time. So I could devote all that time. The second I started feeling better and I'm back and I'm working now, of course I don't have time to do 2.5 hours of exercise every single day. And that's where the all or nothing thinking became detrimental, because it's like, well, if I can't do that, then what's the point? And it's like the tricks your mind plays when you're in that negative thought pattern of like, oh, well, there's no middle ground. There's no, oh, well, you can still do an hour 4 times a week on the cross trainer. Like that's an easy thing to do. That wasn't even an option in my mind because of how my thinking was at the time. Obviously lots to do that was mental health, depression, whatever you want to say. Exactly. So getting out of that was like the biggest. I'm kind of glad I didn't really do much more in terms of approach until I dealt with the mindset side of things, because it was just setting myself up to do the exact same thing and keep doing that up and down yo-yo diet, whatever you want to call it, modality, which does that work for anyone? I don't think so, really.
It's yeah, exactly. It's not really sustainable. And that's why we see so many people yo-yoing up and down. So I'm going to ask you a tough question here. Why is this time going to be different?
That is a really good question. I mean, I think number one, my mindset around it is different, and the goals that I have are a lot more sustainable, or I guess like they're calling me to them rather than avoiding something. I think, carrot and the stick is important. Like, I think you need to have that motivation of, for me, it would be, well, I don't want to end up like my dad, heart attack before I'm 50.
But it can still be a powerful motivator.
Powerful motivator. But if that's all you have, man, that's not a lot to live into. It's something you're avoiding.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then there's the other side of it is like just setting that example for my son. And that's been the thing that's motivated me for the last while on my journey, moving more snail's pace, but still moving. And I guess specifically what's different now that we're like getting things into gear, I feel like I've got a support system around me that is there to push me in that right direction. I've got business partners that are supportive. I've got a great coach and trainer who I feel is like, you know what it's like to be where I'm at. Yeah. You got my back. And then I think just I've got the systems in place as also with that support system. I've got my workouts plan. I've got a gym that I'm comfortable going to. I've got outside of Pit Fitness, I've got my membership at Motion that I'm comfortable there. I know the gym, and I'm not as hard on myself as I was, a couple years ago. I think that was probably the thing that stopped me in my tracks. Again, with that all or nothing mentality, is one little hiccup in the plan, and now its hands are up, and I might as well just throw out the meal plan. If I can't work out today, well, then I might as well just eat whatever, or it's the spiraling down. And I think I have enough mental fortitude now that I'm able to stop that spiral from happening, and I can handle, like, no plan goes 100% perfect.
It never does.
Yeah. So being able to recover from those little things, whether it's, I'm going to be traveling for work for a week, so I can't get my normal workouts in. Well, how do I deal with that? Because it's not, okay, I can't get my normal workouts in, but what can I do? And just where my brain goes now is what can I do? How can I pivot rather than, hands up, like I'm off my plan, so therefore everything goes out the window. Which sounds silly or whatever maybe to people when you're talking about it, but I know there's people who are listening to this who can identify with that way of thinking.
It's one of those things where it's like, we talk about this often, about having a plan. It's really important to have a plan, but what happens when the plan isn't working for us? Or
exactly.
You can't execute the plan. And like you said, if you've got the time and you can work out multiple times a day, you don't have you're not working, you're going to the gym, you can do all these things, that does make it easier. But what happens when life comes in?
Exactly.
Right? And I think that's the second part is like, yes, having a plan, but then having the adaptability of the plan and having the backup plan and the plan. Okay, so
totally.
Like, if I can't do my meal prep, what do I do? If I can't do, if I can't do this, what do I do next? And what's the next best step instead of that all or nothing? So I think that's really, really important too.
And just I think in the past, and I think for a lot of people, the second you start, I'm never going to eat pizza ever again. It's like, what's the one thing you start thinking about every turn is like the thing that you can never have.
Yeah.
So I think also just a more holistic approach to the nutrition side of things, a focus on eating more of a focus on what's going to make me feel better. What do I actually want right now?
And like, I think you had talked about it, the negative can take us so far, but it's the positive that can really keep us going. And that's one of the approaches that we're taking, and I take with the majority of my clients, is not so much what can we take away, It's what can we add? So instead of having that subtraction mentality,
exactly,
I had to stop. It's like, what can we add in? Because naturally that subtraction starts to happen. Naturally,
exactly.
As you're on this journey, you start to notice, oh man, if I eat a whole pizza, I feel like shit. Right. And then you wake up the next day, and then it affects your work, and it affects the time you spend with your son. And then also
it spirals.
Is it worth it? Having a couple pieces of pizza, great. And then it starts to naturally be like, you know what, maybe I don't need to eat a whole pizza. Maybe I can have a piece or two. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And just like you said, just that focusing on the addition, like, oh, I'm adding exercise. And I guess the other point I really wanted to, that's, I think is really different in my mindset now versus before. I think for a lot of years, exercise was like a punishment that I had to do for, exactly. It's like a punishment thing of like, okay, you're a fat piece of shit. You need to exercise because you don't want to be that anymore. And the shift now is, okay, it's about, I care about myself and I want to be healthier and feel better. So I'm going to go do my workout. And it's a celebration of, wow, look at, I couldn't lift that thing a year ago. I couldn't bench press whatever, or I couldn't do X number of squats, or I mean, like, even like the other day we hit the yoke thing just to try it out. And like, I haven't like, you know, been working out for a while, but like the fact, like, wow, 200 whatever pounds, like that's a cool place. I'm starting there. Like, that feels good. And focusing on that positive side of things rather than all the negative places that I think people go. And I think that's the big difference of this time is I have the structures in place to really set myself up for success.
Yeah. And absolutely, man. And I love the way you put all of that. And I think there's another step in there that I'm going to talk about here too, especially for our listeners, is it's also from our conversations, there's been a shift. And there's been a shift from the goals.
Yes.
So right now, our goal isn't to make you a smaller person, is it?
No.
If that happens, then so be it, right? So a lot of times, and I remember, you know, sometimes people project that on us. They see a big person. And they're like, oh, you must want to lose weight. You must want to, and it can get into our self-worth on that, where it's like, I don't want to lose weight because I need to fit a standard. But it becomes more of a like, well, maybe I just want to lose weight because I want to do more of the things I love.
Exactly.
To do more. And that's what we're focusing on. It's not so much like, hey, we need to hit a certain number or we've got to look a certain way.
No.
But more so, you got a son who's growing up that you want to be a role model to, and you want to do fun things. So that's where we've started focusing on our goal setting. So do you mind elaborating or sharing with us what some of your goals are now instead that are driving this journey?
So I think number one, the big one I have is I'd like to compete in the Highland Games and strongman, something strongman related. I'm just dipping my toe in the water, so I don't know specifically what that looks like, but that's a big win, a big shift for me, is because in the past when I've thought about goals, it's like always been about running a 5K. And like, outside of looking at me, I'm not a runner. I'm never going to be a runner. I'm never going to like running. So trying to force myself into that as a motivational thing, even if I was 100 pounds less than I am now, which is also one of my goals specifically, is to lose 100 pounds. But even at that weight, I'm not going to magically start enjoying running. That's not a thing that I'm going to just magically wake up and, oh, I'm a runner now and I really like to go out and run. So having something that's competitive and puts me in an event or a thing that I'm working towards that isn't running is a big win. I'm excited about it. It's a big win. Just focusing on that. And I guess we didn't talk about this off camera before yet, but I want to be able to take my son to Disney World and be going all day and not be exhausted.
At Disney World, you can go all day.
Exactly. Yeah. So I want to be able to be on my feet, walking, going, and then I'm not dead tired at the end of the day. I can actually, get excited for the next day. So those two in particular, 100 pounds, again, it's more of the number on the scale to me is in the past, that was like a the main focus was hit that number on the scale. And it's not that it's not going to be a thing that I'm in our consciousness in the plan. It's just more of a, okay, that weight's going down, so we're doing something right. Oh, you're plateaued. What do we need to adjust to keep that number going down? It's less of the target and more of like a metric for, are we doing the right things nutritionally and exercise wise?
Yep, absolutely. And I think that's important for us to establish here, because you hear so much out online both ways, right? And we've pendulum swung where some people are scared to have a weight loss goal because, well, I'm not supposed to, or there's or it's taboo not to. You should love yourself where you're at. And that's the thing, is it's you should love yourself where you're at.
That's why you want to lose the weight. Yeah, it's
right. And it's so it's like, it's one of those things where, we talked about how it's not the focus. As some people might be like, well, yeah, but you're still talking about it now. Well, sure, it's still part of the picture, and it's not wrong to have that goal. And I think that's one of the things I want to stress to people is that you can still have that goal, but it's our approach, right? In the past, and I've done this with clients before too, especially when I was a new trainer, it circled around just weight loss and being smaller and like getting down, and it was all of that. Whereas now the approach is that's all going to come. We know that's going to come as we start to practice with our lifts, as we start to increase the cardio, as we start to prep you for going to Disneyland with your son, as we look at doing Highland Games or strongman events, right? Like it doesn't, we're going to be working those things together, that we're going to see that shift and that body composition change along the way. And it's not the driving factor. And I think that's important to note, just because it's like,
well, one of those things is incredibly motivational and like empowering and inspiring. And one of those things is like, if just being smaller was a thing that was really, really, really motivational, no one would be fat, because you don't think that every person who's big desires to not be a big person. Like, of course they do,
I think
right?
It also goes a little bit more into not necessarily the desire not to be big, but more of the things it stops you from doing. Right.
Totally.
And I think that's the focus there. Is it's like, because I remember when I was bigger, it wasn't necessarily so much like I still want to be big, actually. I don't want to be. I don't want, because I could drop the weight and be smaller. I still want to be big, but I want to be healthy.
That's exactly it.
And I know you're in the same boat. Where especially like I've got 3 daughters, and it's like I want to be a role model for them, and I want to showcase, like so that they hopefully don't struggle with things as much as I did. And then it's also that fact that it's like, it's more than just being that role model, but it's also being healthier so that I can do things with them.
Exactly.
I've got one daughter who wrestles, and it's like, I want to be able to work out with her and do things, right? I've got another daughter who loves doing obstacle courses and doing all of those sorts of things, right? And, and then my other daughter who loves art, and I want to be able to, because honestly, sometimes sitting on the floor and sketching, I end up getting like, end up getting sore and painful, which can happen from sitting for, but I want to be able to be in good enough health that I can do all of these varied things and events. And
exactly.
It's funny, we didn't talk about the Disney World or Disneyland thing off camera here, but that's one of the things where I'm looking at with my kids, is we were looking at doing a trip like that. And that's why when I said, I was like, there's so much you can do. I've talked to people about like all the events, the rides.
Oh yeah.
It's like, I want us to enjoy that as a family.
Yeah. And everyone to be able to get the full, because like Drew's not going to get the full experience of that trip if his dad is not able to keep up with the walking or go on the rides that we want to go on or whatever it may be. So of course, and I guess like one point I will say that this is I guess another shift in my mentality, and the way I'm approaching things. I've always been a very, very someone who's very hard on myself, until like I would never speak to another person the way I speak to myself internally. And a big part of like what I've shifted in the last couple of years is how I speak and relate to myself. And I think a big shift with that example for my son is, rather than like it would be easy for me to beat myself up, but how can you be an example? You're at where you're at now. Well, I have the opportunity to show him how to overcome a really difficult obstacle, what it takes to go from here to here. When you've got, it's not might be simple, but it's not easy. And being able to show him what it, how do you get from A to B? Well, it's these characteristics that you have to cultivate in yourself, and that can be applied to whether it's weight loss or learning a really difficult skill, or you name it. It's overcoming a challenge, and setting an example in that way is hugely valuable.
Yeah.
So
I what you said there, man, like, and I've said this to clients, and I don't think I've said it to you. Like, your line right there is almost an exact line that I've said to people before.
Yeah.
Is it may not be it may not be, now I forgot the line. It's actually really easy, but it may not be simple, or basically the gist of it, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, when it comes to body composition changing and fitness and gaining muscle and losing body fat, is like, it's actually not complicated. It's actually an easy thing.
Calories in, calories out,
right.
Movement.
It's a simple thing to do, but it's not necessarily an easy thing to do, because there's so many other things, like our mind, and I think that we're talking about that mental side of things and the mentality that we're in, that can really affect it. And that's why it's always just more. It's always more than just doing. And I remember having a conversation with a fellow trainer, and it was one where he had been skinny his whole life, and he put on some muscle, but he couldn't understand the mentality or he couldn't understand, like, why can't you just put down your fork?
Yeah.
Right. Like, why can't you, like, I don't have a problem. Like, no, just don't eat it. And there's so much more that plays into the emotional eating side of it, the release of the dopamine and the feeling you get when you're eating that food, the habits and structures that you built from family or even just on your own that have caused you to be, these are your coping mechanisms. And it's a hard thing to express and explain to people when they don't understand.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. I've been there.
Yeah.
And where I've sat down, and in fact, I think I shared this with you, I'm going to share it with everyone today, is one of the ones where I used to have my go-to when I was in my depressive state and I was really down and out. I still remember what I went to the Mac store and bought, and I would go and I would buy 2 drumsticks, a bag of Doritos, a bag of Cheesies, Swedish berries, Swedish fish, a couple Reese's peanut butter cups, crispy crunch, and a Snickers, and then a 2-liter of pop, Diet Pop, because that was better. More so because I was diabetic, which didn't make sense because I'm eating this ridiculous amount of sugar at the time.
Right.
But that also, I could go down that rabbit hole, where the point was there. I was trying to put myself into high blood sugar so I could fall asleep and then just sleep for 20 some hours. But my point with this one is on the meal, where it was like, I could sit down and I could eat all of that. And I ate it in one sitting. And it was like, I'm sitting there beating myself up going, I know I shouldn't be doing this. Why am I doing that? But I couldn't stop. And to top that off, I often had a TJ's bacon wedgies that I would also have ordered before I went to Max, and then I would crush it all while watching Battlestar Galactica, and then I would pass out. But it's like, when someone says, well, just put down the fork, at that time, I couldn't. That is not something that I could have done, because it had nothing to do about that. It had way more to do about my mental state, where I was at, how I felt about myself.
Oh, it's and in that vein, the one that it still makes me laugh with people who've never dealt with weight problem or eating or any of that stuff, and it's just the thought. I had a trainer that, bless their heart, loved, like, great person, but just wasn't the trainer for me. Didn't get it, and it's that idea that, like, if you're overweight, you don't know how to not be overweight. It's like, no. Most people who are overweight, it's not a lack of knowledge. It's not like someone comes up to you and says, did you know that if you ate less calories, you would, and walked, you would lose weight? And you're like, get the hell out of here. I just have to eat less and do more activity, and then I'll start losing weight. I never thought of that. And it's the mentality of like, oh, it's the knowledge that's the barrier. It's like, no. For most people who have a weight problem, I would venture to say it's everything you just said. There's some type of psychological, emotional, something going on that has led to these coping mechanisms and habits. And now it's, once you develop those coping mechanisms and habits, it's tough to develop a new coping mechanism or a new habit. And that's where we're at. That's why the mindset is so important to, in some regard, get that figured out first, then everything else can follow from there.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah. So I'm excited. I'm really, I'm feeling good. I guess like for the first check-in, I've been like, it's Sunday to Sunday, I guess. A lot of my first weigh-in was, I've started off with 2-3 pounds of weight loss, which good first start. It's also within the water weight, whatever thing, but I'll take that win. I'm not gonna put it down. And hit my workouts this week. And I guess the next like wrinkle that I'm going to be adding in to the plan is, so I have my 2 sessions with you, my Wednesday and my Friday. I'm going to be adding in a Monday and a weekend workout for next week. So Monday, I'm going to be going and doing some cardio, and then Saturday or Sunday next weekend, I'm going to also squeeze in a cardio workout in addition to those 2 strength workouts. So
perfect, man. We've got the plan in place and things have kicked off really well. How are you feeling as far as strength-wise goes?
Really good. I mean, my first day back, for me, it's always the quads and the hamstrings that they're just naturally super tight. So first day back, there was a little bit of quad soreness. But other than that, it just gets easier. It's like before that would have been a thing that discouraged me. Now I feel motivated and had some soreness for a day, and then was like, by my workout Wednesday, by Friday, I felt good to go again, and then had a good workout on Friday and no major soreness or anything from that. So just excited to keep going.
I'm really excited to talk about, the numbers and where we end up going.
Same here.
And see that progression, because you've got a natural strength right off the bat, which is good. But I also want to see like, where can we take that? And
same.
We end up going with that. So
same here.
Really excited for that.
Well, in future updates, we'll have more of an idea of like what goals are in terms of like specific exercises and what numbers we're going for. And I may be even thinking about, once we get into more specific lifts, maybe doing some videos of those lifts to, compare, contrast and see that journey. Yep. But I'm just excited to just start and put myself out there, and excited to see what the year brings.
Absolutely, man. I'm really excited for 2025 and how this journey is going to pan out. Like we said, we've got our plans. And now we see how things kind of fall, and I'm looking forward to that. So, so as far as that goes, man, if anyone wants to kind of follow this journey, is there anywhere that you want to direct them to for that?
Just your channel. I'm going to keep it really simple for the first little while. I'm not going to overextend and start a whole thing. So yeah, you can look. We're going to be having a monthly update right here on the Pit Power podcast, Power Pit podcast. So yeah, we'll every month we'll check in and we'll see where I'm at. And like I said, as we get into more of the specifics with the goals and the lifting, we'll probably have some more detailed updates as far as the numbers. But this is what we're starting with,
and some competitions and some different.
Yes,
we're setting some serious goals, and we're going to make some serious ground here. In this new year. So awesome. So as far as that goes, guys, the Power Pit podcast, we want to change your story. We'd love to hear yours. What are you doing here in this new year to change your story, and how are you going to keep yourself accountable? How are you taking those steps along the way? And if you haven't liked and subscribed yet, and you want to follow along with Andrew's journey, make sure you do that, as well as hit us up on Instagram at PitFitsAsk, where you can see more of his journey as well as links to the podcast, and pay attention to what's coming down the road in the future.